With the help of you guys in the comments of the last video, we came up with enough new craziest stat lines to make a much needed part 2 video. And I'll admit, a few of these I completely forgot about, so shout out to everyone who commented on last video and made this one possible. Now let's get started with 8 more of the craziest NBA stat lines. Number 1, Rajon Rondo with 2 points, 25 assists, and 3 turnovers. This is without a doubt one of the most unusual stat lines in NBA history, and really shows the kind of player Rajon Rondo is and always has been. He's always been the kind of guy that doesn't score unless he has to, and instead would rather set his teammates up for success. And that's exactly what he did here. I mean, he was really a great fit on the Pelicans, and it's a shame he left after only 1 season, because his role was always to direct traffic while he was on the court and get guys open looks. And it made his job extremely easy playing with AD and Cousins for half the season, which is how he was able to have a night like this. I mean, first off, he joined an exclusive list of 12 players to ever record 25 assists in a game, with most notably Jason Kidd, Isaiah Thomas, John Stockton, who did it 3 times, and the record holder with 30 assists in a game in Scott Skiles. But Rondo's is definitely the most odd, because he had by far the least amount of points out of anyone in the 25 assist club, and doing so while only scoring once actually seems a lot harder if you think about it. And as for his 3 turnovers, it's impressive, but everyone else that's had a similar game had a similar amount. Because if you have too much more than that, then you're not going to get enough possessions for the 25 assists. What Rondo does hold over the others though, is the fact that he reached the 25 assist mark in the shortest amount of time in only 30 minutes. 6 minutes faster than the next closest in John Stockton. And Rajon was also the oldest player to ever achieve this at 31 years and 308 days old, with the next oldest being John Stockton, again, who did it at 28. Number 2, NIKOLA JOKIC's perfect triple-double. In just his short NBA career, Jokic has come up with some of the most creative and impressive triple-doubles possible. Last video we talked about how he holds the record for the fastest triple-double ever, but in this case, which also took place this year, NIKOLA may have recorded the most efficient one ever when he put up 35 points, 12 rebounds, and 11 assists on 11 for 11 shooting with 0 turnovers. The only thing that stops us from being completely perfect was that he missed 1 free throw. But there's only been 2 other triple-doubles on perfect shooting in league history, and both were done by Wilt Chamberlain over 50 years ago. What sets Jokic's apart though, and makes his game a one-of-a-kind, was the fact that he had no turnovers. I mean, there's no telling how many, if any, Wilt had for his games, because turnovers weren't recorded until the late 70s. So on record, this game by Nikola Jokic is a one-of-a-kind. Number 3, Draymond's triple-double without points. It's hard to accomplish any first in today's NBA, but Draymond accomplished one when he put up the first triple-double without points, finishing a win against the Grizzlies with 4 points, 12 rebounds, 10 assists, and the also rare 10 steals. And it makes sense how this game happened. Because, I mean, Draymond was turning into a decent scorer before KD joined the Warriors, but afterwards, he hasn't gotten the ball enough to score on a consistent basis. But even till now, that hasn't stopped him from doing everything else he can while he's on the court to stay involved. And on this particular night, he really did everything he possibly could. Not only did he have the triple-double, but he also dominated with 5 blocks, putting him just 1 point away from having a 5x5 game. Now first off, his 10 steals put him as one of only 15 players to ever do so in a game, and put him 1 off of tying the all-time record of 11 steals in a game shared by 2 other players. And then you gotta think that if he scored just a few more points, he would have recorded the first quadruple-double in 23 years, a feat we've only ever seen happen 3 times, and something that's never happened with steals. And a game like this just goes to show how versatile this man really is, and that he's really capable of taking a game over. Over the past couple of years, he's gained the reputation of being overrated by a lot of fans, since his stats took huge hits ever since Durant joined the team. But looking at performances like these should really go to show that his game hasn't dropped off in any way, and it should show how valuable Draymond Green really is. Number 4, LeBron James is 35-17 with no turnovers. Last season for the Cavs, as we all know more often than not, LeBron was having to do everything for his team. And to get a win over the Toronto Raptors, this was the kind of game he had to have. Not only did he create his own shots and opportunities, but he made sure he did the same for his teammates and set them up. And he did that perfectly, with perfect passes and without ever giving up a possession to the other team. With his 35, 17, and 0 turnovers, he became the only player to ever have a game with this many points and assists without a turnover, and the only non-guard in league history without a turnover and 17 or more assists. And not even to mention he had 7 rebounds to go with this record-setting night. We all know how great LeBron's overall game has been, and the fact that his passing ability has always played a huge part in what drew him comparisons to Magic Johnson and set him apart from most other NBA greats. And this game doesn't go down as one of LeBron's top 10, and it doesn't go down as an all-time great, meaningful game or anything like that, but from a clear stat line perspective, it's one of the most productive and efficient we've seen, so it definitely deserved a mention. Number 5, Rondo's 18, 17, and 20. We looked at Russell Westbrook's recent double-triple-double game last video, so this one might not seem as impressive as that, but it's still a crazy stat line. And you also have to look at when this game took place, because Rondo had the 18 points, 17 rebounds, and 20 assists triple-double in 2012 when there was only 42 total triple-doubles recorded in the NBA that season, and where he led the league with 6. Compared to this season where there was a total of 127 triple-doubles and Russell Westbrook led the league with 34 of them. I mean, all the extra triple-doubles definitely has to do with the size and how diverse players are today, but also by how much the game's changed. So based on the fact that this game for Rajon Rondo took place in 2012, really makes his stat line just as crazy. I mean, especially considering the fact that Rajon got 17 rebounds as a 6'1" point guard. Part of what made it possible was the fact that he's always been a smart player with huge hands that knows where to position himself under the rim. And while 20 assists are always rare, I'm sure it was a little easier for Rondo since he still had Boston's big 3 to dish the ball out to. This game at the time put him as the 3rd player to ever have 17 and 20 in a game, and the 5th to ever have 17 in all 3 categories. I'm sure those lists are a lot less exclusive now thanks to how much the game has changed, but it's still impressive. Number 6, Chris Paul's 2020 game. 20 points and 20 assists is great, and will most likely be the game of the night whenever it takes place. But what puts this game into a historic perspective for CP3 is the fact that he did it without turning over the ball, and it took place for him back in his last year on the Clippers. Now the efficiency and precision it takes to make 20 passes to teammates leading to field goals without a mistake is insane, which is why Chris was the first guy to do it in 32 years. And surprisingly he did this without Blake Griffin on the floor that night, which did put the ball in his hands more and required him to run the offense and create opportunities for his teammates. And he did just that. He stepped up and couldn't have led the way better that night. But even then he didn't take all the credit because he still thanked DeAndre Jordan for successfully finishing alley-oops and Maurice Spates and JJ Redick for knocking down their perimeter shots when they had to. Now while this game was as great as it was, it helps just a small amount that they were playing the Pelicans who were without Anthony Davis, Drew Holiday, and Etuan Moore. Which basically left them with, you know. But either way, whatever the circumstances were, this game still went down in the record books. Number 7, Jusuf Nurkic's 5x5. 5x5 games don't ever happen very often, but we have seen a few in the past few years. Nicholas Batum, Draymond Green, and Anthony Davis have all accomplished this in recent memory. None of theirs were nearly as impressive as Nurkic's, because he went above and beyond with 24 points, 23 rebounds, 7 assists, 5 blocks, and 5 steals, making him the first and only player in NBA history to ever record a 5x5 with 20 points and 20 rebounds. Hakeem Olajuwon's the only player that's ever come close to recording a game like this, and he came close quite a few times. But Nurkic was the only one ever able to do it, and it says a lot about him. He's been playing great for the Blazers ever since he got there, and he's clearly improving a lot every year. I used to not be too high on him and his potential, but it's clear that while only being 24 years old right now, he could definitely be a future All-Star one day. And finally, number 8, James Harden's 27 points with 2 field goals made. This is the most James Harden game out there. It took place back in 2013 and is easily one of the craziest and weirdest stat lines in NBA history. For the game, James finished 2 for 9, which on paper would look like one of the worst performances of his career. A superstar player finishing a game with only 2 made shots. But then you look over and find out that he still put up 27 points. And these two things don't look like they came from the same game. But then you factor in the fact that the man went 22 for 25 from the free throw line that night. And to be honest, this was one of the most annoying games to watch because he really didn't deserve nearly that many free throws. He got all of them from drives to the basket, and while some were actual fouls, most came from him hooking his arm under the other player to make it look like it was their fault, running straight into other players and getting the call for it, or just flat out flopping. And I'll admit he's not as guilty of this today as he used to be, but he definitely still flops and draws fouls that he shouldn't get, which is why he gets a lot of hate from certain fans still to this day. But I mean for this game, however he got the free throws, his ability to get them definitely makes this one of the strangest stat lines of all time. And surprisingly, it's not the only time a game like this has happened, because Charles Barkley scored 26 points on 2 made field goals back in 1995 too. But that's gonna wrap up the video. I didn't realize it until after part 1 was out, but a part 2 was definitely needed. So comment down below what you guys thought of these new additions, and which one of this video was the craziest. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and I'll catch you next video.